Welcome to Code Freedom. This is your host, Eddie Bales, and this is episode 221. And I'm really excited about today's episode because my wife and I just recently celebrated 12 years of marriage. So we're super through the roof excited. And so today I'm just going to share with you 12 things that I've learned in 12 years of marriage. Now, I'm going to say up front that our marriage is not perfect. And I'm sure there's many of you tuning in that have been married even longer than we have. So, I'm just sharing with you my experiences of what I kind of learned over the last 12 years. So if you guys are ready, let's go. All right, so the first thing that I learned about marriage is that marriage is not 50-50. And what that means is there are going to be seasons where one may have to pull a heavier load than the other, right? Seasons where maybe someone is sick or hurt. I know I hurt my back not too long ago, and so my wife had to do many of the things that I normally do. And vice versa. There are times where she had some things going on, and I had to kind of pick up the load. And so just understand that things are not always meant to be 50-50. Sometimes it needs to be 60-40. Sometimes it might be 70-30, right? But just understanding that we are here to complete each other. So I think that's really, really important. Number two that I learned is that the love language is really important. Learning what your spouse's love language is. And I'm not going to go over that today on today's episode, but my love language is touch. My wife's love language is gifts. And so oftentimes she'd try to perform her love language on me. So she'd give me some nice gifts. And don't get me wrong, I love gifts, but it's not necessarily my love language. Right? So we all receive love different ways. And so you really want to really understand the 5 love languages. It'll really help you out. The third thing that I learned in 12 years of marriage is that patience is a necessity. Patience is an absolute necessity because you're taking two people's lives of how they grew up. We talk about the paradigms. Matter of fact, just talk about that on episode 220. And so I have a paradigm of how I grew up. She has a paradigm of how she grew up. And we're trying to take both of those paradigms. We're trying to create new paradigms. And then we also are trying to become one. So it's a lot going on there. But just understanding that we just have to have the patience. And when I say patience, I also should probably add in there grace. Patience and grace. Because we have to give each other time to mold into a unit of one versus a unit of two. Yes. All right. Number 4 is don't listen to respond, listen to understand. This is hard for some of us fellas out there because I'll just use me as an experience as a reference. There are many times where my wife may want to share her feelings, and sometimes I would take it as an attack. Fellas, have you ever gone through that? Hey, there may be some females who have felt that way as well, but I know it especially happens with men a lot, is that we sometimes feel attacked when feelings are being shared, and so we have to listen, not to just respond so we can defend ourselves. We actually have to listen so we can understand. And sometimes understanding is not what's said. Sometimes it's what's not said, those nonverbal cues, those body communications that happen, which actually a lot of times speak more loudly than what's actually being said. So that's important. Those are some important things to think about, is don't respond just to react, but respond to understand. And that actually leads me into number 5, which is you may not agree with the feelings, but you should always validate them. And what that simply means is, hey, I have a stance, you have a stance, I don't necessarily agree with your stance, but I'm not going to knock down how you feel because that's your stance, right? Even if I disagree. And I'm telling you, that is so hard. It's so hard. I'm telling you, it's one that I'm still working on. So I'm going to tell you right now, I don't have that one down. But I do know that it's something that I've learned, I've recognized, I've identified. And now, because I've identified it, or we identified it together, now I'm able to kind of work on it, or at least be mindful so that I can get better at it. Number 6 is your partner has strengths that oftentimes are your weakness. So harness those strengths instead of trying to you know, fight against it. You know what I mean? Like, I'll give you an example. My wife's strength is she's very detail oriented. I am not. If we're looking at something, I can see the big picture, but oftentimes I may miss some of the nuances and the details that are important and critical. And so I think both of those have its merit, because while she's looking at the detail, I'm seeing further down the road, you know? And so where my weakness is blessing her strength, where my strength is blessing my weakness, her strength is blessing my weakness is blessing her strength. And that's powerful, powerful, powerful when you really understand that we're here to complete each other, not to compete against one another. We're here to make each other better. And when you understand what your partner's strengths are, and what your strengths are, and what your weaknesses are, that's when you can kind of work it together to say, hey, that's good for you to kind of look out for, while I focus on this, and vice versa. All right. Number 7, communication is crucial. It's absolutely crucial. And it's good to have a safe word. It's good to have a safe word. So our safe word is bubblegum. And by the way, I just learned this one. So I hadn't heard this until probably a month ago, or actually within the last few weeks. And so I think it's important that you have a safe word. I've heard people who have safe words like pineapple. So it's like when you're in the heat of the moment in an argument or something that's just not going right, you just say bubblegum or pineapple. And then we know that we need to kind of simmer down, we need to relax, and we need to kind of dissolve and diffuse the tension, and then we can come back together a little bit more amicably. And there's other things you could do, like you could say pineapple or bubblegum or whatever you're going to say, and maybe do something silly, and that'll kind of like lighten the mood and make you laugh or something, and then just kind of we come back together with a different tone, so to speak. So that one is really, really powerful. Can't wait to kind of really start to implement that. Number 8 is invest in your relationship. It's amazing how so few people invest, period. But then if they do invest, they invest in everything but their relationships. And to me, it's like, if you're not investing in your relationship, like your relationship is one of the strongest things that you have, right? So when I say investing in your relationship, I'm talking about go to seminars, marriage seminars, workshops, books, audios, anything you can get your hands on, and also just have a community, like have other married couples that you can glean from, because sometimes it's more that's caught than taught. We've talked about that. And so when you can catch certain things, like I'll give you an example. One of the things that I like to do is I like to open the door for my wife on her side of the car, right? I know a lot of men who don't do that, and I'm not knocking you if you don't, but guess what? I learned that. That was a learned behavior. You know what I mean? Because it's not like I just knew to do it, because guess what? I didn't see it modeled growing up, but it's something that I decided, hey, I want to adopt that. And it's something that I just added as a part of who I am and what I do. So again, you know, invest in your relationships, but also get around other married couples and do some fun things together. Go on double dates. You know, I get together with a group of couples and we play games, and it's fun. We do a lot of cool stuff. Number 9 is boundaries. Boundaries are critical. It's one of the first things that we learned, and guess how we learned it? We went to a marriage seminar, and that's where we learned how important boundaries are. You know, it's talked about, boundaries are talked about in the Bible. I have to really pull that out and go over that with you on another episode. But boundaries are important because it lets you know where things cut off. It's like if you have a lawn and I have a lawn, I'm not going to cross the boundary and start cutting your lawn. Well, unless you're paying me for it. But I got my side and you got your side, right? So we have to know where the boundaries are. And so when you set boundaries, you know, hey, look, we're not crossing that. So there's certain boundaries that we have agreed on that I just don't cross. And it makes a safe place in our marriage because we respect and trust each other enough to know that certain boundaries are not going to be crossed. All right. Number 10 is it's important to reset. I mean, we go through the hustles and bustles of life. We go through all the challenges, the ups and downs and all that stuff. And sometimes you just need to unplug, unwind, and you just need to get get in the sun, go to the beach, go to the spa. Just do something, even if it's not out of town, even if it's not out of the country, something where you could just rewind, reset, and unplug. Go get some couples massages, but hey, it doesn't hurt to go on get a change of scenery and go somewhere else that you've never been, and do that, at least once a quarter, I would say. Maybe you want to do it more, but the key is to have opportunities already scheduled for the year, where you just know, okay, I'm gonna go through these weeks, but when this time comes, I'm turning it all off, and I'm just gonna have some fun with my spouse, right? So that's really, really important, because you gotta get rejuvenated. Just like how we need sleep and we need rest for our health, optimal health. I think a relationship needs those opportunities where they can, and I'm not even saying apart, being apart from each other. Sometimes that's okay. When you can do things where you got to kind of go away for a little bit. But I'm talking about a time to reset just from life and be with your partner, but reset. Okay, so that's number 11. Number 12 is to, I'm sorry, that was number 10. Number 11 is it's also important that you continue to date each other. Find ways, opportunities, whether it's weekly, every few days, every other week, but you have to have scheduled time in for each other. So make sure that you date each other. 12 is to seek mentors and coaches. Seek mentors and always want to be finding someone that is better than you, that can really help you in every way that you need. So these are 12 things that I learned about marriage. I hope you guys got some value from it. And hey, we'll see you on the next episode.